Mark, 4 or 5 days have passed since we last spoke up at Dingwall. Have you had a chance to look back at that game, and after doing so, have your opinions changed on what you've seen up there?
No, they haven't changed. I think that we knew that certain things were possible with two very young centre halves, very inexperienced centre halves, playing together. And it was always a danger that it wouldn't be as good as it should be, So we know that either of those centre halves could play with the likes of Stephen McManus and be an awful lot better. So, hopefully this weekend that's what will happen. But, we're not dwelling on what happened at Dingwall. I didn't really see that much that surprised me. I was disappointed in certain aspects of it. I think, as I said at the time, I think we were thoroughly well beaten. That's my opinion. That's not changed. My opinion of those that I thought did not bad hasn't changed, and the ones that I thought struggled, I still feel the same way. But my job is to work with those players. Now, the thing about it is, and I'm probably not the one to be reminding people, but I didn't come here because things were going terribly well. I came here because things needed improving. I've been here 5 games now. I've learned an awful lot. I think I know the squad inside out now. I know the strengths and weaknesses. And I will now start to work to improve it and to change it. That's why I'm here. So, part of what happened at Dingwall will be beneficial to me. And other parts, obviously, that I was disappointed in, I hope we can improve it.
Last question on Ross County. Did it surprise you, performance? Because I think we'd seen progress, even at the Inverness-Cali game when we lost, or I think there were large spells of it, large amounts of positivity amounts at Aberdeen game, Celtic second half, Kilmarnock game, all in there. So did it come as a little bit of a setback, if you like?
No, it's not been a setback. It didn't come up as a surprise to me. I hoped we'd do better even with the team we had, but I understand why it looked the way it looked, and I'll deal with that. Tomorrow, against Hearts, we have 3 senior players back who, no doubt, if they play, will make us look different and feel differently. They will be a big help to the young players in the team. You've got to remember, people like even Grimmy, has only played a handful of games. The 2 centre halves only played a handful of games. So, these are boys that are all new to first team football. So they need help. They need the likes of the Lasleys and Stevie Hamill and Steve McManus around them to give them the help they need.
Is it hard to put quite a finer point on just how big an influence those 3 players might be, given that the 3 of them combined have almost played 1,000 games just for Motherwell, let alone the rest of their career? Yeah,
well, I think, it's not just in the games that we'll miss them, but it's also in the training ground. These boys are a big influence, and they've not been training. Steve McManus has, of course, because he wasn't injured, he was suspended, but the other 2 have been injured, so they're missing from the training ground. And, they're missing from the preparation, so we've had them this week. They themselves have had a game in the under-20s and come through it well. So, there's also an influence that they can bring, and it can only be positive. So I would expect an improved performance. I know it's going to be difficult, but I think it will look different than it did at Dingwall. Whether we can beat Hearts or not remains to be seen. I think the Hearts are no different from any other team. I think all teams in this league can beat each other on the same day. But I think that it'll be a difficult game, but we've got to make sure that we make it equally or more difficult for Hearts than they make it for us.
Can you continue the positive message with the players and the fact that, okay, yes, the defeat last week did slip us into second bottom, but you're still within, a semi-decent run of catching a lot of teams in the middle to the upper echelons of the table?
Yeah, I don't look at the table, and I'm not really interested in that. What I'm interested in is the performance. The performance at Dingwall was poor. Performances prior to that were good, even in Inverness game. We territorially and shots and chances had a lot of the game and ended up conspiring to lose a game. Everyone knows the circumstances, a penalty kick retaken and the deflected goal really killed us. But it's not all been bad. So there has been improvement, and I certainly I've gained a lot of knowledge about them since I've been here. So, I expect, it's something I've got to develop. It's not just going to be fixed in one day, so one game. So, Hearts is another stage in that, learning curve and in the development.
You mentioned the 3 players, and I'll just jump back to one of them, right, because he's one of the few of the whole squad so far that hasn't had any game time under you, and it's Stephen Hamill. He's been injured for the full time. a player you know well, though, because actually a lot of people might forget he's a player who you brought back to the club initially. So, I'm sure that although you've not seen him play, you'll be fully aware of what he's capable and also what you've missed from him having not been available.
Yeah, and of course, I even at one point recommended to Gordon that we bring him into the Scotland squad, because what Stephen Hamill has is quality. Stevie, is at obviously the senior end of his career, but what he can do is he can control the ball and he can pass it, and he can bring a bit of composure to it. When the young lads around him, feel the sort of pressure. So he's a very valuable player to have in the team. Desperately wants to be in the team. Desperately wants to do well for his mates and for the fans and for myself. So he can't be ignored. He has great experience, and I think he can bring it to bear.
One of the positives from last week, or I don't say positives, but one of the less negative aspects of last week, you mentioned the front two were still getting a bit of purchase, they were still working hard, they were still forging that partnership. Are you hopeful that as the more games go on, Walt McDonald or variations of that can continue to build on those types and those partnerships that you are trying to develop across the park? With the more games under your influence, the better hopefully it'll get.
I think that those two have a chance of having a good relationship, on the park. I think it's up to the rest of us to provide them with service that gives them the best chance of scoring goals, because I think what we've got in those two is goal scorers. Both of them can finish, both of them want to score goals. That's important. They don't just want to be in a team. They don't want, Louis Moult's not out there hoping that the chances fall to Scott McDonald and that he doesn't get any pressure. Louis Moult's hoping the ball will miss Scott McDonald and come to him so that he can score, and that's the sort of attitude you need from your strikers. So they want to score goals. So it's up to us now to get them into areas of the field and get the ball to them in areas of the field where they can do that. So I'm hopeful that those two have the makings of a successful partnership that can get us goals, but I think it's down to the rest of us.
And it was an interesting point you made to the press last week following the game, that you said a lot of times, particularly in the Ross County game, your shape was dictated to by personnel. That perhaps there was ways or the means in which you had to play because of who was available. With 3 or 4 players coming back, does that give you food for thought about how the team are likely to line up and what type of mentality you're going to take into the game?
Yeah, in particular, we really only had 2 midfield players that I thought on the day we could start with. So that made us, we had to play in a certain way. So it's different, with lads back, and gives us another option. We can play with 3 midfield players. We can play other ways, So it does give us options, and that's good for me.
I know you are not a manager who likes to overly focus on the opposition when it comes to press conferences and interviews. Hearts are the visitors on Saturday, though, and I suppose it would be remiss of us not to at least acknowledge how well they've done since getting promoted. But I suppose in many ways you'll probably argue they're a big club, and facing Hearts is going to be tough no matter when it is.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think they're now back in the division they should be in. I think they're one of the best supported clubs. They've got some of the best supporters in the country. They're passionate about their team, and I think that they will establish themselves at the right end of the table. I think they will be one of the teams who year in, year out will eventually be at the top end of the table and doing the sort of thing that Aberdeen are doing at the moment. They have a good infrastructure behind the team, and Craig Levine, driving that. I think they're becoming a very strong organisation. So I think that in the coming years, Hearts are going to be one of the teams to beat. Whether they're at that stage at the moment, I don't know. We're still to see that, but they're certainly up the league. I go back to what I said. I think on our day, even with Hearts, I think if we can find one of our better performances, then I think we have a chance of beating Hearts.
And no doubt with the conscientious way in which you approach games, you'll have been looking at Hearts all week to see what best way to break them down, creating the best manner in which to open them up, I suppose, if you like, and continue the work that you're doing off the field.
Yeah, I think that we will, of course, look at that, and as we always do, we look at the set plays and we school the players meticulously on it, and it's then up to the players to take that outside and remember it when they come to get a corner kick or a free kick, But from our own point of view, we've worked very, very hard at finding ways of breaking Hearts down, because we know they are going to be strong. We know that physically they're a big side. side, you know, and we're going to have to do it with a bit of craft. I don't think that we're at a stage yet where we can think that we're going to outfight Hearts. I think we're going to have to outthink them, we're going to have to outplay them, and then the likes of Louis Moult and Scott McDonald are going to have to take their chances. But first and foremost, we've got to create those chances, but we've worked hard on that, and I think the lads like, you know, the sort of things we're saying, the sort of ideas we give them. I think they look enthusiastic again, but I think we lost nothing at Dingwall on Saturday. Like I say, I mean, I've only been here 5 games. I didn't come here because the place was flying. Yeah. I came because it's struggling and there's things to be fixed. So, you know, I've got to just move on for that, and I've got to make sure that I allow the players to do that. There can be no hangover from the game at Dingwall. It's finished. Now we've got another game to prove ourselves again, and that's what we can do week in, week out. Even if we're winning against Hearts on Saturday, we've got to put that behind us again and move on to the next game, and it will be equally hard, even if we beat Hearts.
I suppose that's a positive message to put across then, that you are in here as a project. Things are not necessarily going to switch automatically, and you know there will be a requirement of a bit of patience, particularly on our home pitch.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I still believe that the team that we have on Saturday has enough in it to win against Hearts, and if we don't win, I'll be hugely disappointed. You know, but it's still only part of a process. There are still other things that need to be doing outside of winning on Saturday to make this club better than it is now, and to give it a long-term future at the right end of the table.
You have talked about that, and you've talked quite a lot in the press about your meetings with Les. Do you feel a renewed sense of the bigger picture here, as opposed to just taking yourself away from the week to week, need to get a result, need to win, which, as I think you highlighted when you first came back, that was almost what the club was about. It was just get to the next Saturday and get on with it.
Yeah. I've not, and by the way, I've not talked a lot about my meeting in the press with Les. The press have talked a lot about my meeting with Les, which is slightly different. But you know, the fact is that you know, the brief that the owner has given me is, of course, to win football matches on a Saturday, but it also includes a longer term picture of, you know, making sure that we're maximising the development potential of all the good young players that we've got coming through the system. We have a fantastic system up and running. We want to keep improving in that with the way we work it and the people within it, and the facilities that we have to work within. All of those things, we've got to make sure that the long-term future of the club is secure. So, you know, that's part of my job as well. I'm here to also make sure that we have a model up and running that allows the club to be sustained and the club not to get into the sort of financial predicament again before. At the same time, winning football matches that are going to keep us in and get us up the table.
Have you been encouraged, therefore, by what you've seen from the under-20s? I know you've been to see academy games as well. Is there a sense of optimism from your point of view about the kind of talent pool which is bubbling just underneath the first team that you can hopefully develop and tap into either, you know, this January or next summer or thereafter?
Well, I think that, you know, I've come here to talk to you today, and I've left, you know, Stephen Craigan, Scott Leach, Steve Robinson and Jim in my office. I'm going back in there, and we're discussing all this, and we're discussing how we can improve on what we're doing with the young players from the very youngest up until they come through the under-17s into the under-20s or into the first team, you know, and we're going to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, that every single boy that comes into our system gets the absolute maximum opportunity to be a football player at Motherwell or beyond. It's important that we do that because we want the boys to come through and into the team. It's important we do that because we want boys who are in the system already to stay in the system. You know, we don't want boys at 16 having some reason to leave because we're not doing a good enough job. If boys choose not to stay with us when they're 16, it won't be because of that, because we will give them every chance of being a football player. And every single one of us in that office are going to be working full time to do it. So, you know, I'm working with the first team, but I'm also, you know, helping Crags with the under-20s because I've got a self-interest, you know, in making sure that those boys come through into my team. And likewise with the teams down beyond that into Scott Leach's domain in the academy, where all of us are now going to lend a hand down there with players and with teams. We have a fantastic setup, you know, where we have the likes of Keith Lasley and Hamill and McManus and McFadden and all these boys working within the academy. That is something that, you know, these young players can be very, very glad of, because they have a huge amount of experience. They have the club at heart. They have those boys careers at heart. They couldn't be in better hands, and we want to persuade players that this is a club and we're a team that are going to play young players, and that therefore these young players have an interest in staying at Motherwell Football Club for the duration.
Interesting and significant then that Cadden comes on last week as well. First Motherwell appearance in probably over a year and a bit's time. That's maybe an indication then that if you are performing at the 20s level, you are doing well, that you're the type of manager who's going to give them a chance. You've done it at all clubs all throughout your history.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to also make sure that these boys are well prepared. So the likes of Cadden and Mackin and Dom Thomas and that, they've got to be worked with every day. As I've said to my staff through there, I want these boys working every day, every minute of every day that it's humanly possible, without actually hurting them or injuring them or overdoing it. But, I don't think that we do enough with them, or we have been doing enough with them. I think these boys can do more. I think they can train more. I think they can work harder, and we've got to prepare them as quick as we can to make sure that, come next summer, some of these boys are ready for me. If not, they're ready to go on loan so that they can get experience elsewhere and as quickly as possible, ready for me. But we can only do that on the training ground. We can only do it by in the gym. We can only do it by sitting them down in front of videos and showing them where they're going right and where they're going wrong. But we can basically only do it by, giving it our full attention, and that's what I'm demanding out of my coaches, out of my staff, that we leave no stone unturned and that we work as hard as we possibly can to make all of these boys players.
Just to go back to the game on Saturday again, just some team news just to finish off. I know you mentioned McManus, Hamill and Laszlo are back in contention. Joe Chalmers and Wes Fletcher still likely to miss out, you think? Yeah,
they'll miss out. Lionel didn't train until today. He did a little bit yesterday, so we'll have a look at him tomorrow. After that, everyone else is fine.
Is Joe's injury or Wes's injury likely to keep him out for a longer period of time?
Joe's is certainly a nasty little tear he's got in the bottom. It's a very unusual tear, which may take a little bit longer. Wes, I think, won't make Saturday, but I would be surprised if he's not ready the following week.
Okay, Mark, thanks.